Welcome to the world of sci-fi stories. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the channel. Enjoy the listening. Cosmic Council declares war, but humanity shrugs it off. The declaration of war. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The Grand Chamber, a vast hall floating into space, was filled with voices of different alien species. Some hissed, some growled, others spoke in electronic tones, but they all agreed on one thing: humanity was a threat. Chancellor Veer, a tall reptilian leader with golden scales, slammed his clawed fist on the table. His voice echoed through the chamber. Humans must be eliminated before it is too late. We cannot allow them to spread any further. The gathered leaders nodded in agreement. The humans were unpredictable. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, not even the most advanced, yet they had conquered planets, outsmarted enemies, and survived wars that should have destroyed them. The Adler representative, a mechanical being made of shifting metal plates, let out a sharp metallic. They are dangerous because they refuse to follow the rules of the galaxy. They fight wars in ways we cannot predict. They survive in places no other species can, and worst of all, they adapt. A silence fell over the chamber. Every leader knew the stories. The Zorth Dominion had tried to enslave humanity 200 years ago. They were one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The war lasted only 6 months before humans turned the tide. The Dominion was erased from history. The Varnu Empire had declared war on Earth a century ago. They had the biggest fleet, the deadliest weapons. They sent 1,000 warships to attack the Sol system. Not a single ship returned, and now humans were expanding, colonizing planets, establishing alliances, growing stronger. The Galactic Council had seen enough. They could not wait any longer. The time for discussion is over. Chancellor Veer declared, "We will strike first. We will wipe them out before they wipe us out." The decision was made. Every empire in the council was ordered to prepare for war. Fleets were assembled. Generals planned strategies. The largest military force in history was gathering to destroy one species. Meanwhile, on Earth, the war declaration reached Earth in seconds. The council's message was broadcast across human territories, but instead of fear or panic, something strange happened. No emergency sirens blared. No military leaders called for immediate action. No civilians were running in the streets preparing for war. Instead, life continued as usual. In a cafe in New York, a man sipped his coffee while reading the news on his tablet. "Hey, the aliens declared war on us." His friend, sitting across from him, took a bite of his sandwich and shrugged again. Across a planet in the secret underground military base, Black Star Command Admiral Reynolds looked at the war declaration on his screen. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Not this nonsense again. His assistant, a young officer named Julia, looked confused. "Sir, the entire Galactic Council just declared war on us. Shouldn't we do something?" Reynolds leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. "Julia, let me explain something." He gestured toward a massive holographic screen. "See this?" The screen displayed an endless list of past war declarations from various alien empires. "This is the 15th time in the last 2 centuries that some alien race has declared war on us." Julia frowned. "And what happened each time?" Reynolds smirked. "They lost badly." She stared at him, stunned. Every single time. There was no panic, no fear. The humans had faced this before. They had won before, and they knew exactly how this would end. Far away, on the edge of the solar system, hidden deep in the darkness of space, something massive stirred. A fleet, silent, invisible, waiting. The war had already begun, but humans weren't worried. They were prepared. The first strike. The Galactic Council's war fleets had been preparing for months. The greatest armada in the history of the universe was now assembled. Thousands of warships, battle cruisers, dreadnoughts, and carriers, all aimed toward one target: Earth. The Supreme War Marshal of the Zarin Dominion, Krell Threx, stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Doombringer. He was a monstrous being, standing over 10 tall, covered in thick armored scales. His blood-red eyes burned with determination. His officers surrounded him, staring at the holographic battle Plan the humans are overconfident general CEOs of the Velmer. Confederacy, said his tentacle-like appendages curling in excitement. They have no idea what's coming, Marshal. Threx grinned. They will learn the hard way. With a gesture of his claw hand, he gave the order, initiate the first strike. A silent invasion across the solar system, the largest fleet in history, moved forward cloaked in state-of-the-art stealth technology. Hundreds of scout ships slipped past, asteroid belts scanning human defenses. They found nothing. There were no warships waiting, no defense satellites locking onto their signals, no planetary shields activating it. It was as if humans weren't even watching. On the Zarkan command deck, General Aos hissed, they're completely unprepared. They don't even have orbital defenses. Online Marshal Threx frowned. Something didn't feel right. No species could be this careless. But before he could voice his thoughts, an alert flashed across the screen. Distress signal from Scout Group Alpha, then another, and another. One by one the scout ships vanished. There were no explosions, no energy discharges, just silence. Marshal Thex's cold blood ran colder. Where are our ships? Disappearing. To his communications officer, gulped, sir, we don't know. Meanwhile, on Mars, in a secret underground command center deep beneath the red sands of Mars' hidden military outpost, Admiral Reynolds watched the enemy fleet on a massive screen. His team monitored every alien movement. They think they're sneaking in. One officer smirked. They have no idea. Reynolds chuckled. I love it when they underestimate us. With a casual motion, he pressed a button. All right, boys, let's teach these aliens what stealth really means. The hunters become the prey. The alien fleet continued advancing, unaware that they were already surrounded. And then the human struck from the shadows of Saturn's rings, from deep within hidden asteroid bases, from the dark side of the moon. Silent ships emerged. They weren't massive battleships. They weren't traditional war fleets. They were ghost ships without heat signatures, without radar reflections, invisible, deadly human. They moved with surgical precision, ambushing the alien scouts. The enemy fleet didn't even have time to send distress calls before they were wiped out. On the Zarin flagship, Marshal Threx watched in horror as his fleet's numbers started dropping. No battles, no warnings, just ships disappearing from the map. White Kate, a HPP, he roared. A panicked officer stuttered, sir, we don't know the humans. Suddenly the bridge went dark. The lights lied. The air felt wrong. A single message appeared on every screen of every alien warship. A human voice, calm and amused, spoke through the comms. Welcome to the battlefield. Try to keep up. Then the nightmare truly began. The trap is set. The Galactic Council's mighty fleet had expected glory and conquest. Instead, they were vanishing into the unknown, a fleet in panic. Marshal Rex clenched his claws around the railing of his command bridge. His greatest warships were disappearing. One by one, there were no explosions, no distress signals, just silence. The holographic war map of the SES system flickered, showing hundreds of missing ships. Where are they going? General Seos screeched, his tentacles twitching in fear. The communications officer's voice was barely a whisper, sir, they're just gone. No wreckage, no escape pods, nothing. Marshal Threx took a deep breath. This wasn't a battle, this was a hunt, and they were the prey. He turned toward his fleet. Commanders, activate full battle formations. We're not going anywhere alone. No ship is to move without a full escort. But before the order could be executed, the ship trembled. The lights flickered. A new message appeared on every screen. Too late. Meanwhile, in Earth's shadow, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a hidden military facility built miles under the seabed, Admiral Reynolds watched the chaos unfold. His officers were laughing. They're scared. They have no idea what's happening. Reynolds smirked. Good, keep them that way. One of the analysts grinned. How many ships should we let them keep? The room chuckled. Admiral Reynolds leaned back. Just enough to spread the fear. The perfect ambush. The Zarin fleet huddled together, moving cautiously through the darkness of space. They had never been afraid before. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, but this was different. Suddenly, a bright signal appeared. An abandoned human cargo ship Drifted ahead, it sent out a weak distress call. Marshal Threx narrowed his eyes trap. But before he could warn his officers, one of the Zarin captains spoke. Sir, energy readings inside the ship suggest it's carrying an ancient power source. FX hesitated. If humans had some unknown super weapon he needed to seize it, send a squad but keep our defenses up. A dozen alien soldiers boarded the floating wreck. The ship was dark, silent too. Silent as they moved deeper inside. One of them gulped. Sir, it's empty, no crew, no cargo. Then they saw it, a single blinking red light on the floor. It spoke to a word: surprise attack. The trap springs shut before the Zarin could react. Hundreds of human ships decloaked. All around them, they had been waiting in Earth's shadow in the asteroid belts, behind Jupiter's moons, and now they struck. Massive rail guns fired EMP blasts, disabled alien ships. Hypersonic missiles weaved through the enemy fleet like hungry wolves. The Galactic Council's war fleet wasn't just losing, they were being dismantled on the Zarin flagship. Panic filled the bridge. Marshal Threx had never known fear, but now it crawled up his spine. How a human voice came through the con's calm. Cold, amused. Oh, you thought we weren't watching? TX turned toward his officers, his eyes burning with rage. Fall back. Retreat to the outer system. But then a new horror struck his retreating forces. We're also vanishing, sir. There's something waiting for us at the outer edge of the system. Fax's hands trembled. This wasn't war, this was a nightmare. No escape. Marshal Thur had faced many battles. He had never known fear until now. His war fleet, the pride of the Galactic Council, was crumbling. The humans weren't just fighting, they were toying with them. And worst of all, there was no way out. Trapped like prey, the Zarin ships that tried to escape toward deep space were met with an invisible wall, not a literal wall, something worse. Every ship that reached the system's outer edges vanished. No explosions, no distress calls, just gone. Sir, our ships, they are responding. It's like they were erased. Marshal Fax's eyes twitched. Erased? What does that mean? The sensors. Officer gulped. I don't know, but we've lost 200 chips already. FX clenched his claws. They had walked into a trap beyond their understanding, the prison of the solar system. Humans had done something unnatural to their system. Every planet, every asteroid, every piece of space seemed to be watching them. Sir, another officer shouted. Unknown gravitational shifts. There are distortions appearing near Pluto. Marshal Thex's breath hitched. Distortions that could only mean one thing: wormholes. But who was controlling them? A message from Earth. The holographic screen blinked to life. A human stood there, calm and relaxed, as if speaking to an old friend. Admiral Reynolds. Leaking so soon? He asked, a smirk on his face. Thex's mandibles clicked in frustration. What is this sorcery? You can't have this kind of technology. Reynolds shrugged. Oh, we didn't have it, but we built it when we saw you coming. Rex's eyes widened. Impossible. Reynolds leaned forward, his expression darkening. You think we don't prepare, you think we don't learn. You declared war on humanity. You should have asked the others how that turned out. Others? FX repeated. Reynolds chuckled. Oh, you thought you were the first ones. The realization hit Threx like a thunderbolt. There had been others. The truth: no one knew how many alien armadas had come to conquer Earth, how many had vanished without a trace. The Galactic Council had always assumed those fleets had simply gone missing. But now Threx knew the truth. Earth wasn't weak, it was a graveyard, and they were about to join it. Desperation. FX turned to his officers. Activate every remaining ship we break through. No, they fired everything. Plasma cannons, energy beams, missiles. But space itself seemed to twist against them. The wormholes opened and closed at random, swallowing ships whole. Some vessels fire at Earth only for their own weapons to turn back on them. Sir, the laws of physics are our cheech. And Jang FX gritted his teeth. This is not a war, this is a nightmare. Admiral Reynolds appeared again, smiling. Welcome to the solar system, Marshal, where your rules don't apply. Gaf's heart sank. There was no escape. The final gambit. Marshal TX had always believed in order, dominance, and logic. Now none of those things mattered. His fleet, the greatest in the Galactic Council's history, was trapped. The humans weren't just winning, they were rewriting the rules of war. A desperate plan. FX turned to his remaining officers. We cannot fight them head-on. We need an alternative. General Tyros, still trembling, asked, like what? FX's eyes darkened. We take Earth hostage. GS filled the bridge. You want to attack the planet itself? An officer stuttered. It's our only chance. FX growled. If we cannot defeat them, we force them to negotiate. We bombard their cities. We target their civilians. We make them beg us to stop the chilling. Silence followed, then slow nods. This was no longer about victory. This was survival. The Death Fleet moves. The remaining Zaran ships pivoted toward Earth, their engines roaring. Thousands of plasma warheads armed themselves, ready to turn the human homeworld into ashes. Full speed ahead. Threx commanded, fire on my mark. They rushed toward Earth. Closer, closer. The planet loomed before them, its blue and green surface almost peaceful. Weapons at maximum charge. FX raised his claw, ready to give the final order. And then everything stopped. The war that never happened. The Zaran ships froze in place, not physically, but time itself refused to move. Threx blinked. He could feel his own heartbeat, but his hands wouldn't move. His officers' faces were twisted in shock, their mouths open. Mids scream, but no sound came out. Every ship in his fleet was trapped in a moment that refused to vend. And then they heard the voice, not over the comms, inside their minds. This is not your war. Threx felt his soul tremble. The voice was not human. It was not alien. It was something greater. The Guardians of Sol, a presence, filled the space around them. Something far older than the Galactic Council. Something that had been watching. A massive structure decloaked between Earth and the fleet. A station the size of a moon. Its surface pulsed with energy. Its design unlike anything in known space. This was not human technology. It was something else, something ancient. And then it spoke again. You do not belong here. The Zaran fleet wasn't just trapped. They were being erased. The vanishing armada, one by one. Zaran ships disappeared, not destroyed, removed. THS screamed, but no sound came. His vision blurred, his consciousness fading. The last thing he saw was Earth, still, untouched, still watching. Then darkness. Back on Earth, Admiral Reynolds sighed, sipping his coffee. One of his officers chuckled. You think they figured it out? Reynolds smirked. Doesn't matter. The massive Guardian station above Earth hid once before vanishing, like it had never been there. The Galactic Council would never find their missing fleet, and they would never come back, because the humans were never alone. The Galactic Council's dilemma vanished without a trace. Panic spread through the Galactic Council like wildfire. Marshal Thex's mighty armada was gone, not destroyed, not defeated, just erased. No distress signals, no wreckage, no survivors. The most powerful war fleet in galactic history had entered the solar system and never returned. The Zaran homeworld was in chaos. Billions demanded answers. The High Chancellor of the Galactic Council, Supreme Elder Veros, stood in silence, staring at the empty war map. Where did they go? He muttered. The answer was terrifying. No one knew. The Council meets in fear. A special emergency session of the Galactic High Council was called. Leaders from dozens of species sat around a circular chamber, voices raised in fear and confusion. The humans must have a weapon beyond our understanding, shouted a reptilian delegate. Impossible roar. Another. No species can simply erase a fleet from existence. A nervous insectoid ambassador clicked its mandibles. Maybe we were never meant to attack them. The room fell silent, and then laughter, but not the usual kind. This laughter was hollow, bitter, terrified. We thought they were prey. Supreme Elder Veros whispered, but they were the hunters all along. A secret buried in history. An old scholar, a frail and forgotten historian, stepped forward. I have studied ancient records, he said. Veros narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? The scholar took a deep breath. This is not the first time a species has tried to invade Earth. Jests filled the chamber. What? The scholar continued, his voice trembling. Over the last 100,000 cycles, many empires have declared CED war on humanity. All of them disappeared. The council chamber went deeply silent. No one had ever spoken of this No one had ever realized every attempt to conquer Earth had ended the same way, with vanishing fleets. What is Earth hiding? The truth was clear: something protected humanity, something older than the Galactic Council, something that was still watching. Veros clenched his fists. Then we have only one option. The room turned to him. We will never speak of this again. Murmurs spread through the council. We can't just ignore this one. Ambassador protested. Varlo's eyes darkened. We must. If we acknowledge what happened, it means we accept that something greater than us exists. A heavy silence followed. Then slowly they nodded. Fear ruled their hearts. The Council of the Galaxy, the rulers of 1,000 worlds, chose to forget. They would never speak of the war with Earth again, and they would never return back on Earth. Admiral Reynolds stood on the balcony of a military station, staring at the stars. A junior officer approached. Sir, the council is retreating. They're pretending nothing happened. Reynolds chuckled. Of course they are. The officer hesitated. Sir, do we tell them? Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Tell them what? The officer swallowed hard. That we don't actually know what happened either. Reynolds smirked, taking the sip of his coffee. Let them wonder. Above them, in the deep void of space, something stirred, watching, waiting, and it smiled. The truth beyond the stars. A secret never meant to be found deep beneath the surface of Earth, hidden far from human eyes. Something ancient awakened. It had been waiting, watching, guarding, and now it stirred. A pulse of energy rippled through the void, stretching beyond the solar system. A silent message to something unseen, far away in the ruins of forgotten worlds. Others awakened to they had always been. They're waiting for the moment when the balance of power would be tested, and the moment had come. The Council's last mistake. Supreme Elder Veralos had thought the crisis was over. The Council had agreed they would forget Earth. They would pretend the war never happened. They would never return. But not everyone followed the rule. The Watcher's warning. On a distant world, a rogue scientist named Kel Torin had been listening. He had intercepted the distressed signals of Fex's fleet before they vanished, and he had recorded something no one else had. A transmission, a single whispered phrase before the fleet was erased. Not in human language, not in any known tongue, but something older, something alien. Kel Torin replayed the words over and over. He ran them through translation algorithms. Finally he got a result. The phrase was simple: they are not yours to take. Kel Torin's blood ran cold. He turned to his assistant. Prepar, my ship. We need to go back to Earth. The assistant eyes widened. But the council forbids it. Kel Torin's voice was barely a whisper. I don't care. I need to know what we've been afraid of all this time. And so, without permission, he said, course for Earth. Back on Earth, Admiral Reynolds watched the stars, a knowing smile on his lips. The Galactic Council thought they were safe. They thought Earth was an anomaly, a mystery better left unsolved. They were wrong. Humanity had always been protected, not by technology, not by strategy, but by something else, something far beyond their understanding, and deep within the core of the Earth, beneath layers of rock and forgotten history. It opened its eyes, watching, waiting, and smiling.